every one of my class and I say, hands up for those who have, and if they're honest, who have called Africa a country. And then I start and I say, you have 54 countries. You have 3,000 languages and 1,500 ethnic groups. And you know what? You know I didn't use the word tribe, because no tribes were there. They never call themselves tribes, right? Europeans call them tribes, right? You have 30 million people called Igbo in Nigeria. How can that be a tribe? A tribe is supposed to be a small set of people who know everybody. How 30 million people know each other? So even the very words they use to identify us are inaccurate. But we keep calling ourselves that. We never have no tribes in Africa.
And I want I want you to elaborate on this, right? Because I know through colonialism, all the names have changed, and a lot of groups have kind of just been put into certain little geographic areas, right?
Right.
How do you explain to people that they understand that a Nigerian is not necessarily a Nigerian, or the groups within that is not indigenous to that particular area? They're put there for colonial reasons.
You know, it's funny you start with Nigeria, because the word Nigeria and Niger, which is a neighboring country, they are from the Greek that mean people of darker skin, right? And so when colonialism came, it essentially arbitrarily put a lot of people who had lived separately together. And not only did they put them together, they made them compete against each other. Why? Because the very ethic of colonialism is divide and conquer. If you keep people divided, then you can continue to rule them by dropping crumbs, letting them take it and thinking that you prefer them. But what you're really doing is manipulate them to hate each other, right? So if you think of the region of West Africa, because most of the enslaved came from West Africa and Central Africa. So people who got to the Americas, people who got to Haiti were from Central Africa, Congo, right? Many who got to Jamaica and Barbados, many of them are of Senegalese descent. Many of these countries existed long ago, but many of them were created starting with the Scramble for Africa in 1884. Right? When the Europeans, 13 European countries met at the Conference of Berlin and decided to carve up Africa without one African present, right? So somebody's going to divide up your place and you're not there to say anything about the division. So everybody started to land grab, and they put people together that historically were not to be put together. So we end up with 54 countries, but of a truth, if we were to divide them according to smaller groups, we would have hundreds of small states. And that is not unique to Africa, because before Europe begins nationalism in the 1850s, many of these countries that are now one country were several countries. So Prussia was a country different from Germany, right? Italy was not yet a divided, united country, right? So Europeans went through that process voluntarily of bringing small pieces together. Guess what happened in Africa? It was involuntarily done. So it didn't occur through the actions of the Africans. It occurred through the Europeans who superimposed it and said, you are now a Nigerian. You are now a Congolese, but you could have been from the Baganda people in Uganda, right? Or you could be from the Batutsi or the Batwa, right? But they just put everybody in one. Wolof, Mandingo, everybody in one.
You know the funny thing about you just mentioned something very important, and it showed the ignorance of Europeans from that time till this time. You mentioned something important where you talk about Nigeria, the naming of Nigeria. If you realize several countries in Africa today, the meaning of it is like people have the sunburn faces, people like Ethiopia, you have Kemet, Egypt. So you realize that Europeans didn't have a clue what the continent of Africa whole, when they got to the continent of Africa, made them give it such names? What your thought process?
No, you know what is funny? Is exactly because they knew, because they would have had the longest experiences with Northeast Africa, right? So remember Kemet or Kamot, which means land of the coal black, right? Anybody know coal? Know that coal look like the flag behind me, black, right? That was what the people call themselves. And Egypt is a Greek name, right? Because by the time the Greeks, through Alexander the Great, conquers Egypt and begins to rule during the 27th dynasty onwards, it became Egypt or Egyptus, right? Same thing with Ethiopia, right? That's a Greek name. Even in the Judeo-Christian Bible, Ethiopia exists, but Ethiopia is another Greek word because the people were called Cush, right? They were called Put, Mizraim, right? So a lot of the things that they know about Africa, they knew, and they knew it positively, but they wanted to start naming these places in such a way to depict these people as less than, right? Because Nubia, what we now call Sudan, land of the bow, right? Lots of gold was there, and the people were once conquerors of Egypt, right? When you think of all the other countries, Zimbabwe is actually the name of the place because that is from the Shona people, meaning great house, right? So a lot of the names were left in place, but many of them were essentially Europeans giving names, because when you name something, you control it, right? That's why I say, my youth this, and you give him a name, right? He becomes yours, right? And so that is what naming was about, because they didn't ask the people, what do you call yourselves? They gave them names, right? Ghana is the original name of the people, right? And some of them maintained that ancestral name, but many of them were renamed by Europe. And Europe had a notion of a map, you know. In the 13th century, Mali is on the map of the world because Mansa Musa had already made his pilgrimage to Mecca, giving away thousands of pounds of gold. So they knew Africa and knew Africa's wealth. And then at the other end, when the Portuguese begin to sail under the auspices of Prince Henry the Navigator, sail up the Cape of Good Hope, stop in South Africa, then called Azania for some of them, and then going up to the Congo, they begin to see the other part of Africa, realize that there's a lot of wealth there and wanted to exploit it.
Thank you for watching I Never Knew TV. Please subscribe, comment, like, and